Hello and welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to do a bit more about the speedrun, and this video is going to be a little bit more chill than my other ones, and so I'm just essentially doing a podcast in front of my flowchart here. So what are we going to do in this video? Well, we're going to discuss how I made the minimum time, and also why I made certain choices that I did to make the speedrun. So, let's get on with the first question, how I made the minimum time. Well, for starters, let's say, why did I make the minimum time in the first place? So, I looked at speedruns, a plethora of speedruns, and it often seemed that people gave two times. They gave the real life time, so essentially the time it took in real life to perform the whole speedrun. But then, on top of that, they include the in-game time. Now, I was using a snapshot, and a very specific snapshot, so I couldn't actually use the in-game time, because there were no mods available for that specific snapshot. So, I decided, okay, what's the next best thing? I know, why don't I give the minimum theoretical time, or at least how I imagine the minimum theoretical time to be. I'm not entirely sure whether this is entirely correct, but from experiments and such, these are the sort of the results I've got. And essentially, it's all in this flowchart here. So I guess let's get on with it. Right, so what's the first thing that happens? The first thing is the world generation, okay? You essentially create the world, and it goes building world. Okay, next thing. Player enters the world, the command blocks are placed, the end portal is placed, and the redstone block entity is summoned. Okay, then one game tick later, the player is sent to the end because the player is inside the end portal, the redstone block entity becomes a block, and that schedules tile ticks on these command blocks for the next tick. Okay, then the Ender Dragon is summoned and the player is teleported up 500 blocks. Okay, that's after another game tick. Then after one more game tick, the player starts to fall and the Ender Dragon dies and his death animation starts. Now the Ender Dragon death animation is 10 seconds, so we need to wait an additional 10 seconds. And then finally, we have the Ender Dragon death animation finishes, the end portal forms, and the player enters the hitbox of the end portal. Right? And finally, one game tick later, the player enters the credits. Okay, so what is this time in total? Well, we have one game tick, plus one game tick, plus one game tick, that's 3 game ticks, plus 10 seconds and 3 game ticks, plus another game tick, 10 seconds and 4 game ticks. Okay, what is 10 seconds and 4 game ticks? Well, it's 10.2 seconds, and that's exactly the same time that you would have saw in the speedruns themselves. Now, you might also be thinking, but well, wait a minute, why are you even summoning an Ender Dragon? Why don't you just literally set block an end portal in the end? And that is a good question. And the answer is that in pre 1.8, where this bug occurs, it is not possible to place end portals in the end with commands. Therefore, you have to summon and kill the Ender Dragon. Or just kill the spawned Ender Dragon in the end. However, a post 1.8 you can, so if you find a similar glitch, then you can jump straight from the player entering the world up here, all the way down to the credits here. So if a similar glitch was found, how would I do it? Well, what I'd do is I'd firstly set block an end portal at my feet, and then in the same tick, I would summon a falling sand entity with the block ID of an end portal in my feet. So then what would happen is, in the next game tick, I would firstly be sent to the end, and then the end portal falling sand entity would also get sent to the end. One game tick later, it'll land and become a block. Another game tick later, and it'll send us directly to the credits. Okay, so that will be a what? So a 1, 2, 3 game tick speedrun, which of course would be insane. However, that wasn't possible in the version that I used, so that's why I didn't do that. Okay, next. I realized that it is actually possible to go straight from the world generation stage to the end generation stage. So, at least from a rendering point of view, you never see the overworld generating. Now, depending how you define your rules, you can actually use this to your advantage. You can actually skip a game tick and a bunch of seconds from the end, from the generation itself. To allow for this idea, you would actually have to change the rule of the timer starting when the overworld is generated, or when the world is created, to the timer starts when the client starts to render a world. And if you defined that, then you would skip out a whole bunch of the generation process, and also a whole bunch of the client render time from the overworld. So you would actually skip a fair amount of seconds in real life time. However, you would save one game tick in the entire speedrun time, which is, I mean, it's not a major amount, but you know, it's still an amount. So the theoretical time could be sped up by one game tick, depending how you define the rules. Now, the other thing is, the Ender Dragon is summoned, and then we kill it with TNT. So why didn't I just summon the Ender Dragon with 0 HP so it starts its death animation instantaneously? Because clearly that would have actually saved one game tick. We could just skip from here to here, and basically these two would happen in the same game tick. Why didn't I do that? Well, the reason is I wanted the dragon to die via either environmental or player damage, and it just didn't feel right for the Ender Dragon to die through NBT, or through giving a very specific value of NBT. Now, technically there isn't really a difference, so you can again save another game tick. But I just thought, for the sake of making it like other survival speedruns, we should have at least TNT, or explosive damage, killing the Ender Dragon, because lots of speedrunners use beds to kill the Ender Dragon, you know, with the explosions that beds create, or they use arrows from bows or swords or whatever. So actually, it's a bit unfair almost, or it's a bit cheaty to just summon in an Ender Dragon with 0 HP. So that was a rule that I actually put in there, but I didn't actually specify. The rule being that the Ender Dragon has to die to either environmental or player damage. But that's about it, so as always, thanks for watching.